Welcome back. Well, as you can see, I am all bundled up here. We got a lot of snow yesterday and last night, a lot less than we were expecting. Audie is sound asleep right behind me. He had to go out this morning and check it out. It doesn't seem like a lot of snow to me, but for a little cat, this is like huge. This is like snowdrifts. And I still have to go around and make the rounds of my neighbors because one of them came over and shoveled out my walk for me. So this morning when I went out to shovel, it had already been done. So I texted one of my neighbors, the one who I thought did it, after I got his son who said he did not. And turns out it wasn't either one of them. So now I got to do the rounds and find out which one. That says an awful lot for the neighborhood I live in, that, yeah, they come around, they shovel out my yard, and so many of them do it on such a regular basis that I don't even know who to thank. It's like snow fairies. So, yeah, I love my neighbors. Okay, when we come back, we are going to finish up with the video from the Carlisle Antique Mall. That was our Fancy-Schmancy antique store. And you can take a look not only at the rest of the bargains I got there, but some of the other things that I saw that I thought might interest you. All right, we'll see you in a minute. Well, as I mentioned last time, I started on the third floor and worked my way down. So this portion of video is on the first floor. And of course, that's the main area. The more prominent booths are there. And there was some interesting stuff. So let me start off with a couple of Empire dressers. This is a really nice little Empire dresser. And remember, we've talked about Empire in the past. Notice how that top drawer extends over the lower drawers, characteristic of Empire, along with the curved edges and just beautiful wood. And this is really nice because it has these 3 upper drawers, and at $2.95, not bad at all, especially considering that it's probably 200 years old. This is also an Empire piece. Take a look at the curves. Now, we do not have the overhang on this top set of drawers, but still, you can see in the lines. And $4.25, nice marble top. And this piece, even though there are a lot of aspects that really appear Eastlake, is actually Victorian. Not surprising, there would be overlap. Same. The Empire furniture period, it was in the early 1800s. The empire in question was the Napoleonic Empire. And that was the Empire style. It was a style that was French. Now, we had it in the United States, and I'll get to that in a minute. The English version was Regency, because in this period, that was the English government. One of the Georges was regent for another one of the Georges, and they were all mad as hatters, so what difference does it make, right? The Regency style was actually quite different. The Empire style was a very sort of heavy, ponderous style, which I'm sure you noticed when you saw those dressers. Very interesting that the top drawer very often overhangs the lower drawers. the the main influences of the empire period was the expansion of Napoleon's army. They went into Egypt, North Africa, and they were seeing all kinds of things that Europeans just didn't see. So styles were coming back, and American furniture was heavily influenced by both the Regency, for obvious reasons. We had only recently separated from Great Britain, and although for some people, boy, that was a very firm separation, they had fought in the Revolution, for others, they were beginning to think of English as, our kissing cousins. The empire furniture from France had a major impact on us because of James Madison's trip to France. He was a diplomat, and I do not remember his exact title, but like Benjamin Franklin before him, he had been a diplomat in France. Jefferson had gone to France too, but it was really Madison who brought back a lot of French furniture. And it was in the Empire style. So if you look at what's in the White House now, the historical collection there, or if you watch that wonderful film, Jackie Kennedy's Tour of the White House, you see empire furniture like crazy. And the War of 1812, the White House was burned down. So Madison needed to refill the house, and France was his supermarket. So that's one of the reasons that empire furniture had such an impact on us, whereas ordinarily French designs until, really the 1950s, when fashion design came in from France, French design had very little impact on us. Art Deco, which came from France, when that hit America, boy, we flipped it on its ear and we called it streamline modern. The French influence was there, but we preferred our own American incarnation of the design. But as I say, the exception to this was Madison, and where the presidents go, the people follow. So we do see a lot of interesting empire pieces. They look solid, and they are solid, very well built. We're talking about furniture that is about 200 years old now. So empire pieces, which in my young adulthood were cheap. I mean, really cheap, because as you saw from those two dressers, they weren't fancy carvings, none of the frills of the Victorian design, which people tended to gravitate toward, much simpler pieces. They were dirt cheap then. They're going for decent money now. So if you have empire pieces in your attic, haul them down and put them to use. There was also a Victorian dresser. And I rarely call furniture Victorian. Victoria had a long reign. So the term Victorian describes a period that started in maybe the 1840s and went through until the 1900s. It's a long, long period of time. And I don't generally say that's Victorian, because it covered a long period and a lot of styles. But that little dresser is a very classic Victorian piece. It looks to be 1860 to 1870. And this was the Victorian furniture that Charles Locke Eastlake and others, people like William Morris, everyone in the arts and crafts movement was rebelling against. This is the stuff they hated. But you look at it and you say, well, I'm not sure what else I can call it. I'm going to call it Victorian. That's what it is. And it's probably very classically Victorian. What we see in our heads when we think of Victorian. All right, so enough lecturing on furniture, and let's get on to. There was a very interesting Famille Rose dish, and I saw that one as I was walking by, so let's take a look. Famille Rose. This is marked a Japan piece, but that's because this is one of those pieces that was made in Japan, decorated in Hong Kong. And let's see, TFF. That was, again, as we spoke about this a few days ago, the Japanese porcelain makers invariably used initials for their company. And then, of course, it was decorated in Hong Kong. Also, this is cased in lead. And I've handled a few pieces like that. They are nice pieces. In fact, Audie's food dish is somewhat similar. It's a piece of Famille Verte that is cased in brass, I think. Protection against the next time he chases a mouse into his food dish and then sends everything skittering on the floor. As I mentioned in the film, this is Audie's cat food dish. Famille Verte, I'm calling it Famille Verte, it might be Famille Jaune. Green family, basically, as opposed to pink family, as the other one was. Same type of piece. This is ACF. That was the Japanese Porcelain Manufacturing Company. And as I've mentioned, most of them went strictly by their initials. So it's like, honestly, it's like alphabet soup. You know, YTT, PC, ACF, ACT, all these companies. There's not a lot of point in memorizing all of the companies that produced porcelain in that period because there was a lot of overlap. But anyway, this is Audie's, and as you see, it's got a casing on it. I said it was brass. It's not. This is pewter or lead, maybe pewter with a lot of lead in it, as the other piece in the antique mall was. And this one, I don't know if you can see right here, there's a little divot. Let me see if I can get it over onto the side so you can see the little divot right here where a cigarette would rest. This was intended to be an ashtray. So why did they do this? Well, very often they would have pieces of porcelain that had chips along the rim, and this was a way to salvage those pieces. Clever, economical. It allowed you to turn a dish like this into an ashtray just by putting that little divot into the pewter casing. And you do see quite a few of these. They're heavy, and as I mentioned in the film, I find it valuable because the last time Audie had a nice piece of antique Chinese porcelain, and it was an old piece, he chased a mouse into his food dish, and when Audie chases a mouse, it's a three-ring circus in here. He doesn't stop till he gets the mouse. You can't get in between him and his mouse. The only one who could do that was the dog. And when the dog would stick her nose in near the mouse, Audie would just back away. It's like, okay, you can have the mouse. He loved his dog. So for me, this is useful. It makes it very hard for him to scoot this bowl off the counter, and if he does dump it on the floor, it has a better than average chance of surviving because of this metal casing around it. So, practical. That piece, I showed the price on the piece because I closed in on the price tag. I don't remember what it was. Not a piece that I was going after because I felt it was a little too high priced. This next one, though, I saw from across the room. Well, I spotted this piece from halfway across the room. Yes, it is Noritake. It is $12. Absolutely, it is coming home with me. Now that piece is a Noritake lusterware. They called it a sandwich tray. Yes, why not? It has a handle. You put your food items on it, your cookies, your sandwiches, your whatever. I always thought of them as tea trays, but if you want to call it a sandwich plate, I don't see any reason why you can't put sandwiches on it. But it's lusterware and it has that very typical Noritake pattern of the tree, the water, the little shack. And sometimes that little shack will be a windmill. I've certainly seen a lot of that. At one time, I came across a piece like that. It was a tray that had a moose on it, of all things, instead of a shack. Just, wow, really surprised me. And actually, I never intended to sell that piece. I showed it in a video. Someone got in touch with me through my Etsy shop and said, ooh, me. I was like, yeah, I get that. You just don't see a Japanese porcelain with moose on them. So, but that piece is a nice one. A little on the expensive side in terms of what I usually pay for these things, but a significant piece, a serving piece like that will sell. So, yeah, took that one home. Next up, a couple more Japanese pieces. These were older. These are Nippon vases, a pair. $16 a piece, so it's $32 for the set. Well worth it, very beautiful. So let's take a look. Same booth as that pretty Noritake plate. Nippon vases, $16 each. Very nice. They look to be about 8 inches tall. Good price. Not coming home with me, but good price. Now, that's not the sort of piece that I really want to put through my Etsy shop. At $32 for the set, I would have to charge a lot more than I ordinarily do. Ordinarily, if I have a price tag that is well above $30, it's because it's a full tea set, not just a couple of vases. I'd rather keep my prices low if I can. I'd rather things be more accessible to more people. But they were beautiful, and if I wanted the vases for myself, I would consider them a very, very good buy. And next up was a real thrift store find. Okay, so much for not being able to find good deals at the Fancy-Schmancy antique stores. Salt and pepper shakers, $6. Here's my hand. Look at the size of those pieces. My goodness. Those salt and pepper shakers are really nice. They're unmarked. I have no idea who made them. They do look Japanese. And the lids screw on the top. It's porcelain on porcelain, which was fine when they did it. As the Japanese did that. That's not at all uncommon. I have salt shakers in my own china collection that work like that. You know, the lid screws on. Not the safest thing in the world to do for a wide variety of reasons, not the least of which is there's nothing to insulate one piece of porcelain from another, so it's very easy to break or chip them. But there is a solution, and I'm saving that for a project video. We will get into that. I am going to show you, because this is something you should know, this little project, but it's going to be a surprise. I'll save it for later, how you deal with porcelain on porcelain, or any lid you want to protect, or even any lid that has become loose and you start screwing it on and it's not catching anymore. So that's going to be our project. But at $6, that is ordinarily the general price range I pay for salt and pepper shakers. And these were a very nice large pair. Next up, this was just a teapot I saw. So let's take a peek. Lovely teapot here. What is this? $16, I think it was. No, $14. The tag says Sadler. I can't see the marking underneath. Very nice piece, good price, and frankly, if I were not up to my eyeballs in teapots already, I would grab this. Well, I thought this teapot was remarkably pretty, and the truth is, if I didn't have probably a half a dozen teapots right now, I would have grabbed it. But I am sort of overloaded on teapots at the moment. If it's still there later when I eventually divest myself of my current batch of teapots, I may go back for it because it was definitely a nice price, a good piece, good condition. And that, by the way, I should mention, is one of the things I noticed throughout that store. You just don't find broken pieces there, and I really like that. Now, mind you, I have no objection to wandering through thrift stores or lower-end antique malls where you are going to find broken pieces because you very often get awfully good deals there. But as I hope I have been showing you with the last two videos at the Carlisle Antique Mall, you can get very good deals from antique malls where you don't have to worry about hidden damage. You just have to be aware of what you're looking for because the deals are there. So the advantage to a place like this is you don't have to second guess every piece you buy. You buy a piece from a place like that, it's not going to have hidden damage. If it does have hidden damage and you bring it in and say, look, 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 oh, they're going to deal with it. Whereas at other lower level antique malls, you very often find the policy is all sales final no matter what, even if there was hidden damage, even if there was repaired damage. And that's a little different from hidden damage. When I find repaired damage, that's when it starts to move from hidden damage over to getting a little close to intentionally hidden damage. And that's the sort of thing that makes me uneasy. It's not the sort of thing you find at this place. So, but that's the advantage of high-end places. Now, let's take a look at the final piece. No markings, at least nothing I can see, maybe something under the price tag. $6. Yeah, coming home with me. Well, I did find a marking on the back of that piece. It was dated, I believe, February 16th, 1926. So it was a hand-painted piece, but I could see that immediately. I'm sure you could as well. Hand-painted piece that was a very popular thing in the earlier part of the 20th century. It was mostly a woman's thing to get these blank pieces of china and then paint their own floral designs on it. I like them. I have to say I have a real fondness for them. Very often, these little amateur painters who were in fact just, housewives or even young girls had remarkable talent. And they certainly created some very appealing designs. So even on the pieces where I feel the execution might be a little lacking, the overall design is usually striking. If they might not have had as much talent as a professional, they certainly had an eye for it. And frankly, many of them had as much talent as a professional. That violet plate is really, really nice. And I like the shape of it. 1926, yeah, that's definitely an Art Deco era shape. It's sort of a stylized triangle. And the fact that it's dated on the back, really nice. So that is a piece that I had no trouble with at all. And that's something I would encourage all of you to do as well. When you see hand-painted pieces from obscure artists. If it appeals to you, grab it. You can usually get these for very good prices. And the artistry is really worth it. You can find some unknown artist, someone who never even saw themselves as an artist, and get a little one-of-a-kind piece for yourself. So that was my trip to the Carlisle Antiques Mall. If you liked that, if that was something that you want to see more of, let me know in the comments, because I can go back there anytime. And as I'm sure you must realize, because I showed a picture of the outside of the building, that was the thumbnail I put on the video. 3 stories, huge place. There's a lot to see there. And because of the nature of businesses like this, the stock turns over all the time. So if you're interested, we will go back. All right. In the meantime, have a great day, and I will see you all tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.